To God be the glory. We would like to thank God for answering our prayers and for providing all of our needs. For the past few years, we have been asking God to provide for the needs of the building project, and we are so grateful to God for allowing us to finish some of the projects that we have. So, nag-usap-usap kami sa church ministry team na baka few days from now, palitan na natin yung signboard ng isang box. Kasi yung immediate need natin ngayon is additional parking lot. And we are hoping that God would grant us this. Kaya huwag po kayong magtaka kung magbago yung karatula ng isa. Instead na building will be for special project for the new or additional parking lot. Hindi pa natin alam kung saan. May mga nagtatanong, saan tayo? I said, I still do not know. But I know God will provide. So help us pray that this would be realized. Also, we are already talking in the church ministry team na maaring next year, 2023, we will attempt something that was not attempted in the past. Na yung ating participation for the national ministry, sa ngayon 15% yung ating participation from the overall collection that we have, except for designated funds. Ang ating prayer, ang ating dream is that we can also give 15% to the international and cross-cultural ministries. Ang ibig sabihin, every month, out of the total collection that we have, we will get 30%. Hindi pa po yan nagawa noon, but we are praying to God. We are trusting that He will grant us the privilege of participating both in the national and international ministries. Also, kindly pray with us because we have upcoming activities. We have our Thanksgiving on the last Sunday of November, and we will have our Christmas celebration. We also have our confirmation of leaders for next year, and also our New Year's Eve activities. So please pray that we will be able to make all the necessary preparations. When the First World War erupted, it killed millions of people in areas that were affected. When the Duke of Austria-Hungary, Duke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated in Sarajevo, Bosnia, it started the First World War because Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire made war against Great Britain, France, and Russia. And later on, America joined in the war. So many people died, many houses and buildings were destroyed. And after the First World War, many leaders of countries wanted to establish a body, an organization, which would try to prevent another catastrophe. Kasi napakadami yung namatay sa First World War, and ayaw na nilang maulit yun. When they gathered together, they decided to establish what they called at the time the League of Nations. The function and purpose of this organization was to prevent another world war. Unfortunately, in 1935 and 1936, Germany and Japan started invading other countries. Under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, Germany conquered Poland, Czechoslovakia, and in 1936, Japan entered China. At sumama ang Italy under the leadership of Benito Mussolini. At ang ginawa nila, parang pinagparti-parti nila yung mga bansa. Germany said, I will take care of Europe. Japan said, I will take care of Asia and the Pacific. Italy said, I will take care of Africa. Para bang naghati-hati sila sa cake? But they were gambling on the lives of millions of people. And so when Germany, Japan, and Italy formed what they call the Axis power at that time, Great Britain, France, Russia, and America responded, especially when America was bombed at Pearl Harbor. Millions of people again died. And even the Philippines was affected by the Second World War. And Japan suffered the most because when America decided to drop 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, hundreds of thousands of people died. And even until today, you can see the scars of the war. And so when the Second World War ended, countries and leaders of the countries of the world said, hindi man nagawa ng League of Nations yung to prevent another world war. Why don't we abolish the League of Nations and establish a new one? Perhaps this would be successful. And they established a new organization, which is the United Nations. But if you look at it, from 1945 up to the present, the United Nations was not able to prevent war between countries. Because in the 1950s, we have the Korean War. The 1960s, the Vietnam War. In the 70s, war in Latin America and in Africa. In the 80s, in the 90s, in the Middle East. In fact, there was a country in Africa which experienced genocide, Rwanda and Burundi. Then you have the 8 years war between Iran and Iraq. Then 4 years where ISIS controlled most of Iraq and Syria. And even today, Yemen is in conflagration. Myanmar is having a genocide. Syria and other places. So the United Nations was not able to prevent wars between countries. And we see a lot of conflicts, not only between countries, but even between ethnic groups. Merong isang ethnic group, ayaw niyang makita yung isa, gusto niyang mabura from the face of the earth. That's what's happening in Myanmar. The Rohingyans are being massacred, being slaughtered by the thousands because they do not belong to the same ethnic group. And so the question is, it seems that peace is an elusive thing. Even if you establish bodies like the League of Nations, the United Nations, these bodies cannot prevent the eruption of hostilities and problems between countries, and not only in countries, but even in communities. Even in the home, there are conflicts, there are troubles. If you remember, there was a time I mentioned to you about the speech or the lecture of Mark Gongor. Itong si Mark Gongor, meron siyang lecture about paano yung husband and wife hindi magkagulo doon sa bahay. Because sometimes, even in the home, the husband and the wife are quarreling. Parents and children are also having trouble. And sabi niya, kasi yung utak ng babae, iba doon sa utak ng lalaki. Perhaps he may be right. But the question is, how can we have peace in this world especially when we read Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, when Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." We are in a world that we have inherited the nature of Adam, na parang pag ipinanganak yung isang tao, ang kanyang kakambal, kaguluhan, trouble, conflicts. And Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And my problem to this is that our Lord Jesus Christ did not explain how this will take place. Para bang sinabi niya mag-bake ka ng cake pero wala kang ingredients. You're living in a world that is filled with chaos, filled with troubles, filled with conflicts. But if you are a peacemaker, you will be called children of God. But before we think of being a peacemaker, perhaps we would look into some of the possible causes of conflicts. Ano kaya ang mga possible na kadahilanan kung bakit may mga conflicts? And I have listed here a few, at kung meron kayong idagdag, pwede niyong idagdag later on. But I have here on my list, number one on my list is that provocation will definitely bring conflict. If you and I provoke another person to anger, do not be surprised that you have conflict. And what are ways of provoking another person to anger? I think irresponsibility can trigger conflict. If we are irresponsible, may mga bagay na dapat nating ginawa at hindi natin ginawa, may mga bagay na hindi natin dapat gawin at ginagawa natin, our irresponsibility can trigger conflict. Kuminsan, yung mga nanay, umagang-umaga pa nagsisigaw na dahil yung mga anak hindi naguhugas ng pinggan. Punong-puno yung lababo. Kaya, very early in the morning, akala mo Third World War na doon sa bahay. When a husband who is supposed to bring food and other needs when he comes home at night, comes home drunk, filled with vices, walang dalang pagkain. At pagdating sa bahay, sinisigawan pa yung mga bata, pati si Mrs. When we are irresponsible, we can trigger conflict. Another way of provoking people to anger is disrespect. When we disrespect others, do not be surprised that we are in trouble. When you park your car or vehicle in front of the gate of another person at hindi siya makalabas, huwag kang magtaka na basag yung windshield mo. If we do not respect others, we court conflicts and chaos. Another possible way of provoking others is disobedience. When you are in the school, we are in the community, and we disobey rules and regulations, then obviously you are courting conflict. Because those who are in authority, those who are doing their jobs, will be angry. Meron akong kausap kahapon. Sabi niya, "Pastor, nahirapan talaga ako sa high school. Dahil yung first year ako, pinaalis ako ng aking school. Ayaw na nila sa akin. Sabi nila, sige, pasado ka sa first year, pero huwag ka nang bumalik. Humanap ako ng isang school for my second year. Ayaw na rin yung school sa akin. Sabi nila, sige, we'll give you your card, but do not come back. Third year, iba na namang school ang aking pinuntahan. Ganon din, pinaalis din nila ako. You know, when we disobey rules and regulations, we are courting conflicts. So we provoke. The first possible cause of conflict is provocation. The second on my list, second cause, possible cause of conflict is envy. O sa Cebuano pa, masinata sa uban. Just like what Cain did when he saw his brother Abel being accepted by God. There was envy in his heart which resulted in murder. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, when they saw the vineyard of Naboth, napakaganda nung vineyard ni Naboth, gusto nilang kunin. They manipulated. They accused him falsely. And they hired false witnesses to say that he was blaspheming God. And they stoned him to death. Envy can trigger conflicts. The third on my list of possible cause of conflict is aggression. When we enter the house of another person and try to destroy things there, or one country invading another country, definitely there will be conflict. I was invited to a church somewhere in North Cotabato. And the elder said, Pastor, dito tayo maghapunan sa bahay. And so I went, and when I entered the house, I looked around and I saw shotgun dito, Garand rifle doon, Armalite dito. I said to the elder, ano yan, Brad? Sabi niya, pag may pumasok dito, makatikim talaga. When you enter a house, you're aggressive. Akala mo, ikaw ang hari ng mundo. Then naturally, you'll gain conflict. The fourth on my list is criticism. When we are very critical about other people, we are so vocal in our criticism, then that could be a trigger for conflict. Kaya I always mention this on Facebook, on social media, please do not make your criticisms. Sana huwag mag-dislike, like lang on Facebook. Because the moment you make your criticisms about other people publicly, you put them to shame, then definitely we will have conflicts. And number 5 on my list is when we enforce our will on others. Yung bang pag nagsalita tayo, parang tayo lang ang tama. Yung iba parang wala ng utak. We enforce. And it seems that we are speaking ex cathedra. You understand the term ex cathedra? Pag nagsalita tayo, we are infallible. We do not commit mistakes. One of the blessings that I would like to thank God, that when I was in Bible school, some professors taught me about parliamentary rules and procedures in conducting business meeting. Hindi ko po alam kung yung ating mga pastor ngayon ay meron din silang subject na ganon. Because it really helped me a lot. Because parliamentary rules and procedure in conducting business meeting allows for every person in that room to have a chance to speak. Dahil pag ikaw ang chairman ng business meeting, you are a guide. You do not dictate. Kung merong magbigay ng motion, you are obligated to accept the motion and ask for a second, and this motion should be discussed and later on should be voted upon. Because the tendency is, kung tayo ang chairman at merong magsalita at ayaw natin yung kanyang sinasabi, binabara ka agad natin. Para bang tayo lang ang nakakaalam. When we enforce our will on others, definitely it will trigger conflict. Kaya nung nandun kami sa Malayal, some of you men were there on the first night, sinabi ko talaga, if there is an amendment to any practice, it should be through a motion, seconded, and discussed. Hindi lang isang tao ang magdesisyon. Otherwise, there will be trouble. A friend of mine told me that at church, hindi ko sasabihin anong pangalan ng church, but there was a regular church ministry meeting. Tayo dito sa SICAEC, every month tayo merong regular church ministry meeting. So nagkaroon ng church ministry meeting doon sa isang church. And there were decisions that were made during the church ministry meeting. But one person was absent at the time. After the meeting, he arrived. And he deleted everything that the CMT decided. The next Sunday, 60% of the congregation left the church. If we enforce our will on other people, we impose our own ideas as if others do not have any idea at all, then definitely there will be trouble. And if you are listening carefully for the 5 things that I mentioned, provocation starts with the letter P. Envy starts with the letter E. Aggression starts with the letter A. Criticism starts with the letter C. And enforcing our will on others starts with letter E. Supposed to be P-E-A-C-E, peace. Lagyan na lang natin ng no peace. If we provoke people, we envy, we are aggressive, we are critical, and we enforce our will, there will be no peace and we will never be peacemakers. And so I said, Lord, have mercy on us. Because in one way or another, we are guilty of at least one of this. Ang mahirap pa niyan kung guilty tayo sa lahat. How can we become peacemakers? How can we be what Jesus wanted when He said, you will be called children of God? And so God led me to Ephesians 2:14 to 18. Ephesians 2:14 to 18. For He Himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility, by setting aside in His flesh the law with its commands and regulations. His purpose was to create in Himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. And in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which He put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who were far away, and peace to those who were near. For through Him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. It is only when we are united with Jesus Christ that we can become peacemakers. Because what we have inherited from Adam drives us to conflict. Because when Adam and Eve were evicted from Eden, the curse was given to them. And in that curse, there will be hostility between man and the creation, and there will be hostility between man and his fellow men. How can we break the curse? Only by being united with the Lord Jesus Christ. That He provided a way of peace between just, holy God and a sinful and rebellious man. He made his body as the bridge that would reconcile the two warring factions. In ancient times, kingdoms would put high and huge walls around them to protect them from their enemies. And they would build war machines to destroy those who would want to destroy them. They would not build bridges between them and their enemies. They would not do that, because it will only hasten the destruction of both parties. But Jesus Christ did what is impossible. He used his body as the bridge so that we can be reconciled to God. He allowed his body to be tortured, mutilated, humiliated, so that there will be peace between us and him. And when we attach ourselves to him, we will no longer live a life that will provoke others. We will no longer live a life that would be envious towards others. We will no longer be living a life that is aggressive to others, critical to others, and enforcing our will on other people. Because our God, he has all the power in the world, but when he was hanging on the cross, he could have summoned hundreds of thousands of angels to destroy his enemies. But he died alone to give us peace. To God be the glory.